I moved into apartment 9C on a Tuesday afternoon in late October. It was one of those old buildings downtown, the kind, with Art Deco molding and radiators, that clang in the middle of the night. The rent was suspiciously cheap, but I didn't ask questions. I needed a place, and this was it. The landlord, Mr. Petrov, handed me the keys without much ceremony. "Quiet building," he said, his accent thick and unfamiliar. "Most units empty right now. Renovations coming soon." I nodded and took the keys. The elevator rattled as it carried me up to the 9th floor. When the doors opened, I stepped into a dimly lit hallway. Only 2 doors, 9C and 9D. Mine was on the right. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The apartment was small but decent, a living room with a large window overlooking the street, a tiny kitchen, and a bedroom barely big enough for a bed. The walls were thin. I could tell that immediately. When I set my box down, the sound echoed strangely, like it traveled further than it should have. I spent the rest of the day unpacking. By evening, I was exhausted. I ordered takeout and ate on the floor while scrolling through my phone. That's when I heard it, a soft sound, coming from the other side of the wall I shared with apartment 9D. At first, I thought it was just the building settling. Old buildings make noise, everyone knows that. But then I heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. 3 distinct knocks, spaced evenly apart. I sat up straighter, listening. Silence. I shrugged it off and went back to my phone. Maybe someone was hanging pictures, but the building was supposed to be mostly empty. I tried not to think about it. That night, I couldn't sleep. The radiator clanged every 20 minutes, and the streetlights outside cast strange shadows across the ceiling. But it wasn't just that. It was the feeling. The feeling that someone was listening. I lay in bed, staring at the wall that separated my bedroom from apartment 9D. In the silence, I could almost hear something on the other side. Not footsteps exactly. More like movement, shifting weight. The creak of floorboards. I told myself I was being paranoid. New place, new sounds. I'd get used to it, but then I heard the knocking again. Tap, tap, tap. This time, it was looter, more deliberate. It came from the wall right next to my bed. I sat up, my heart pounding. "Hello!" I called out, my voice sounding small and foolish. No response. I waited for 5 minutes, barely breathing. Nothing. Eventually, I lay back down and pulled the covers over my head like a child. I didn't sleep well that night. The next morning, I asked Mr. Petrov about the neighboring apartment, 9D. He frowned. "Empty. Has been for months." "Why?" "I thought I heard something," I said, trying to sound casual. He waved a hand dismissively. "Old building, pipes, walls, everything makes noise. You get used to it." I wanted to believe him, but that night, it happened again. I was making dinner when I heard footsteps, clear, distinct footsteps, walking back and forth in the apartment next door. I froze, a knife in my hand, staring at the wall. The footsteps moved from one end of the apartment to the other, then stopped directly on the other side of the wall from where I stood. My breath caught in my throat. Then, slowly, 3 knocks. Tap, 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 tap. I dropped the knife. It clattered against the counter, the sound impossibly loud. The knocking stopped. I grabbed my phone and considered calling someone, the landlord, the police, anyone. But what would I say? That I heard footsteps in an empty apartment? Instead, I did something stupid. I went into the hallway. The corridor was silent and dim, lit only by a flickering overhead bulb. I walked slowly to apartment 9D and pressed my ear against the door. Nothing. I knocked softly. "Hello. Is someone in there?" Silence. I tried the doorknob. Locked. I stood there for a long moment, my hand still on the cold metal. Then I heard it so faint I almost missed it, a voice whispering. It was coming from inside 9D, but I couldn't make out the words. It sounded like someone speaking very quietly, very quickly. My skin crawled. I backed away from the door and hurried back into my apartment, locking the door behind me. I didn't sleep that night either. Every sound felt amplified. The radiator, the wind, against the windows, and beneath it all, that persistent feeling of being watched. Around 3 a.m, I heard my phone buzz. A text message from an unknown number. You should close your curtains at night. I stared at the screen, my blood running cold. I looked at my window. The curtains were open, the city lights glowing beyond the glass. I got up and yanked them shut, my hands shaking. Who had sent that message? Who was watching me? I checked the number again. No area code 1 recognized. I tried calling it back, but it went straight to a disconnected tone. I sat on the edge of my bed, my mind racine. Then I heard it again. The knocking. But this time it wasn't coming from the wall. It was coming from my front door. Tap, tap, tap. I stood up slowly, my heart hammering in my chest. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. I unlocked the door and pulled it open. No one. But on the floor, directly in front of my door, was a folded piece of paper. I picked it up with trembling hands and unfolded it. It was a note, written in neat, careful handwriting. I can hear everything you do, every step, every word. Every breath. Every breath. We share more than just a wall. I felt like I was going to be sick. I looked down the hallway toward 9D. The door was slightly ajar. I hadn't heard it open. Against every instinct, I walked toward it. Hello? I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. I pushed the door open slowly. The apartment was identical to mine, same layout, same dimensions, but it was completely empty. No furniture, no belongings, just bare walls and dusty floors. Except for one thing. In the middle of the living room, facing the wall I shared with my apartment, was a single chair. And on that wall, covering nearly every inch of space, were photographs. Hundreds of them. I stepped closer, my legs feeling like they might give out beneath me. The photographs were of me unpacking boxers, me cooking dinner, me lying in bed, scrolling through my phone, me standing at my window, all taken from inside my apartment. Angles that shouldn't have been possible. My hands went numb. I backed out of the apartment, my breath coming in short gasps. I ran back to 9C and slammed the door, locking it, deadbolting it, shoving my small couch against it for good measure. I grabbed my phone to call the police, but before I could dial, I received another text from the same unknown number. I'll be home soon. Don't go anywhere. I looked at the wall I'd been sleeping against for 2 nights, and I finally understood. The apartments weren't separated by a wall. They were connected by something else, something I couldn't see. Something that had been watching me the entire time. I heard the elevator down the hall ding softly. The doors opened. Footsteps began walking down the corridor. Slow, deliberate, stopping right outside my door. And then, one final time. Tap, tap, tap. I didn't answer. I still haven't. Because I know now that whoever or whatever is in 9D doesn't need me to open the door. They've been inside all along. If you enjoyed this story, do you want to miss the next one about the security guard who worked the night shift in an empty office building and discovered he wasn't checking in alone? Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. And remember, always check who your neighbors really are. Sweet dreams.